concept that I had with this new R&D is about the significance of trees in different cultures, whether it was the tree under which Buddha received enlightenment, or was it the apple tree where Newton found gravity. So, holding these two, keeping this in mind, we want to see a confluence of the significance of trees in the East, in the West, and how overall it has an impact on our environment today. Ta, ka, di, mi, ta, ka, jo, nu. Ta, ka, di, mi, ta, ka, jo, nu, ta, ka, di, mi, ta, ka, jo, nu. Taka, dhimmi, taka, junnu, taka, dhimmi, taka, junnu, takita, 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 tai, tai, diditai. So this is the first part that we have, that where we've explored and introduced the character of Aranyani and her home, what it encompasses, the forest, and the animals, and her happy dance. Now the next part that we have is Aranyani decides to take help from two different people. One we've called scientist, and the second is called the sage. And this is basically conceptually thinking about the spiritual and the scientific knowledge that we as humans, as a civilization, we have, and everything that we do within those boundaries to understand the nature around us. So that is the underlying basic principle that we use to explore this work further. So having the two different Aranyanis, Aranyani decides to go seek help from the scientist. Okay, can you help? What are the things that we can do scientifically to save Aranyani? And Aranyani, who loves to explore, who loves migration, who's been observing the migrating birds, says, I am going and following those birds. The apple. Got it?
Yeah.
Can you please pass it over? Thank you. I was testing my theory. Okay. Did you get the apple? Did you? No? Don't worry. I'll take another one. So this is the part where we've tried to introduce the character of the scientist. The scientist that we're referring to was Newton, with the apple falling from the tree and having a little bit of an interactive moment. And this is a potential moment of an audience interaction that we could have. Now, while the part of Aranyani goes and out migrating to search for the scientist in the West, for the gravity, which was obviously identified by Sir Isaac Newton, we also have Aranyani, who remains rooted where she is, and in this case, it's a forest in India because it's Aranyani, as it's an Indian. From the Rig Veda, from an Indian scripture. So that part of Aranyani seeks help spiritually, in a spiritual way. So she meets somebody called Sage. Sage, who is meditative, who is, almost like a yogi for people who are familiar. So she decides to go in that direction to seek for help. So this was something that we developed towards the end of the week. So we've got an introduction to the spiritual realm, and we thought of incorporating some yoga movements as a way to introduce a form of spirituality. And this is how the Aranyani seeks help spiritually. So the next part of the story is when the sage and the scientist meet together to work together collectively as a team. But of course, science and spiritual realms have their own differences. So we start off with the scientist. The scientist says that we need to perform photosynthesis. Now, Aranyani is the one, as a forest, the plants are dying. We need to revive them again. They need to photosynthesize, they need nourishment, and scientifically we know that photosynthesis is the way forward, and we need 3 ingredients for that, which is water, sunlight, and carbon dioxide. That's all that plants need to nourish themselves. And the sage and the scientist both try to get hold of water in their own different ways. The scientist says, I can create water by chemically mixing hydrogen with oxygen. And the sage goes, oh well, I know a water god and I can just get water from the water god. So I'm going to use, so there are 2 different methods of trying to get the same element. And we have not done this part of the work, but in the next thing for the sunlight, the scientist says, I don't have a scientific way to generate sunlight as yet. So the sage says, well, no problem. I know the sun god, or Surya. So we can ask him for some sunlight. So the sage does sun salutations and shows the scientist how to do the sun salutations. And this is how they get their sunlight. So a conceptual thing, but this is how we get sunlight, by praying to the sun god. And then the last part of this R&D is when the next last thing that they need is carbon dioxide. And the sage goes, I don't know any god for carbon dioxide. Sorry, we don't have too many gods after all. So scientist says, no problem. We'll actually generate carbon dioxide by doing an experiment. So here's a scientist who's going to chemically synthesize carbon dioxide, knowing that acetic acid reacts with sodium bicarbonate to release carbonic acid, which quickly decomposes into carbon dioxide and water. And you also have a remaining salt, which is all a part of the chemical reaction. So we've got some sodium bicarbonate here, and this is used to collect the carbon dioxide, and then there is acetic acid. So that's releasing carbon dioxide into the urn or the balloon. We still need to do a little bit of design over here to make it look more authentic, but this is science trying to get hold of carbon dioxide, so collectively the 3 elements, the 3 components needed for photosynthesis are here, where the scientists and the sage have worked together, and we just used a glow stick for a sunbeam for the moment. And this is until where we have developed the work for this week. The part of the story continues where we will be having a bit more of an audience interaction, and also to realize that, to show that the 2 need to work together, and collectively we can heal the nature, we can heal the forest goddess together as people. So that is where we're heading off next.